Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. And you know what? This time I mean it, because I watched...
I wanted to say you've listened to another anime podcast?
they're out there, trust me. YouTube's trying to recommend them to me, but I have watched all the anime since last episode. Every anime released has been watched by me this weekend. I'm caught up on everything. I'm good to go. And you know what? There's a lot of things I actually like going this season.
There's definitely a lot of stuff worth talking about this season.
There's some
sure.
quality shows, some not so quality shows, which we'll talk about that I'm finally dropping off as we are already rapidly approaching the middle of the season. But we don't need
guys,
to.
What's your anime of the year?
Oh
right,
yeah,
guys! Top 5 lists will be due.
next
week.
I gotta start collecting those soon because we're already in November here. Perhaps some of the shows this season might be in there.
Is it time for me to start spamming for your consideration Vinland Saga Season 2?
Oh god, I have to finish that before the end of the year too.
Man, fuck November. Can't shave, can't not, have to write a 50,000 page work. And you have to choose your best anime of the year.
Fucking hell.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, November, the worst month. But yeah, we do have a lot of anime to talk about. But before we get into that, let's introduce everybody. I'm Jel. I'm joined by Iro.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
Still alive, still with us. We are joined by G.
You know, it's fitting, Jel, that you talked about having to watch all of that anime in such a short period of time. Some could say you were really crunching on getting all this anime done in time for the podcast. And I think that's really inspired me, actually. You know, I think inspired by MAPPA CEO Manabu Otsuka.
Oh no.
I think we can really take the GLORIO chat to the next level. And that's why I'm here to announce that starting today, there will be an episode of the GLORIO chat every day. We are no longer doing every 2 weeks. We're doing a daily podcast.
Oh, wait, you know what? We'll just live stream our reactions to whatever we're watching every day, right? Keep that hashtag content flowing.
Someone has to be the new Yamakan, right?
Oh God! Not to immediately date this podcast. Just I recently read a new interview with MAPPA CEO, where the dude basically admits that he took a hard look at studios like KyoAni and Madhouse, anime studios that kind of at UFO Table that built up their reputation through years or even decades of building talent and institutional knowledge through, the retainment of veteran animators, and said, I can do that in 5 years. I'll just work all of my relatively new, fresh talent into the dirt.
Make them do 10 years 10 years worth of work in 5.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And he's very proud. He this interview, he's like, man, I'm a genius. I'm a business savant by figuring this out. And it's like, dude, you are really not doing yourself any favors here.
Hey, what's the worst that could possibly happen?
What are they doing this season?
Jujutsu Kaisen.
Attack on Titan.
Yes, those two.
Oh, yeah, well. Those are the two of the biggest things going. So
yeah.
Well.
I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying it's shitty.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, they did Vinland Saga Season 2 also this year.
Also an excellent anime. I can't deny it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're also joined by Aqua. Welcome back, Aqua.
I've had a week off from work, and my mental health has deteriorated already to such a point that I'm super into Yu-Gi-Oh! Now for some reason.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I recently also took a week off and realized I need a month off, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, studies show if you're working a 5-day work week, you should get a week off every 2 months.
Huh.
Sounds
like a revolutionary
really nice.
idea.
Yeah. Or just have a 4-day work week.
Get out,
Yeah.
you communists! Did the Union put you up to this?
Oh shit! The anime, the Mappa Union.
The problem is capitalism.
Mhm.
Anyway, let's steer this train back over to anime.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got a bunch of things we're watching, and we'll start with one of our more anticipated shows that finally hit Netflix,
It's finally here.
which is the anime adaptation of the critically acclaimed Pluto manga.
Itself an
which-
adaptation of the acclaimed Astro Boy
Yes, it's a
storyline, the strongest robot.
fun, lighthearted Astro Boy spin-off, Pluto.
Is it controversial to say that Urasawa is the best currently active mangaka?
He's definitely in the running. I would
Right.
say, like, if you said that, I wouldn't push back. I think there are
Right.
other mangaka out there who are, like, in that same weight class, but to have Urasawa's consistency,
Hmm.
he is very well up there, yeah.
You're gonna get sniped by a One Piece fan 3 days from now.
All right, tell you what, when One Piece has its own arc that is a metaphor for conflict in the Middle East, you know.
Oh, they will all tell you that it
Yeah,
is.
I was just about to say you're gonna get sniped by a One Piece fan in about 3 days.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you see, the Fishman arc is actually a metaphor for.
Anyway, yeah.
Let's talk
Pluto.
about Pluto. Now, have you
Yeah.
all read the manga? Because I have not, but
I have. I've
Okay.
also read the original Astro Boy storyline.
As have I.
I have
So-
read bits and pieces of the Pluto manga because it is one of the ill-fated manga that actually got like an attempt at localization in my country and my native language,
Oh,
but
no.
then it stopped
Damn it.
because it turned out everyone was just buying manga in English. Like,
Right.
Well,
yeah.
That is,
so I think once again, this is going to be you guys have the manga reader perspective, and I have the coming in cold. I mean, other than I've picked.
You know what Astro
I know
Boy
what it is because I know what
Yeah.
Astro Boy is, and I know what
right.
Pluto is, just because it's one of the most like I
Mhm.
said, critically acclaimed
Right.
manga out there. But
I mean, I still think that perspective is going to be really valuable because
Yeah.
I have talked to people who straight up watched Pluto and did not realize it was an
Right,
Astro Boy thing
right.
until the very end of the first episode.
oh yeah,
right.
if you didn't
That's pretty
tell me
funny,
that,
actually.
if I didn't know that beforehand, I don't know if I would have realized that at
I mean,
all.
that's also the strength of the material, right? Because it offers a completely different perspective. Like Astro Boy is a quote-unquote superhero story told from the perspective of Astro Boy, whereas this sort of reframes that arc as a police procedural murder mystery,
Right.
noir kind of
yeah.
thing
Yeah.
from the perspective of a different character, right?
Right. Since this is our first time talking about it formally, I guess we might as well just like establish real quick, right, that Pluto is, as we said, an adaptation of an Astro Boy, an original Astro Boy arc in the manga, basically about a series of murders that occur in a world where ostensibly robots are unable to harm humans, and takes the perspective of a European detective named Geschicht, who is also a robot, and sort of the developing mysteries that occur the deeper he delves into the case.
And like the important thing is that there are parallels between a series of robot murders and a series of human murders.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just for context, I think all of us here have only watched the first episode. So unfortunately, Pluto got Netflixed, which means nobody will be talking about this anime in like 3 weeks.
Right.
So
Also, it has an added quote unquote problem of having episodes that are an actual hour long. So it takes a bit more effort to sit down and watch.
It's like
What are you talking about? It's on Netflix. I binged it in one day.
God.
It's like eight episodes, but mathematically it's probably like 20 something normal anime episodes.
Right.
I mean, that first step,
The first episode
cut it up
yeah.
into more episodes because
The
like
first
that first
episode is
episode
really strangely structured, right?
That first
Yeah.
episode has like 2 distinct segments
Storylines.
in it,
Yeah.
and so like I think I feel like it probably would have been fine to just cut those into 2 episodes.
Yeah.
and, like,
It's especially striking,
have irregular episode lengths. But
right? Because the first 20 minutes like set up the mystery, introduce this character of Gesicht, the robot detective, and then all of a sudden we skip to this kind of one-off sort of story about the relationship between an elderly man and his new robot servant slash butler, and it sort of makes you think of like, oh, so this is the kind of show that is going to be like, there will be an overarching plot, but then you will also have these vignettes in which the author ponders the nature of artificial intelligence and all of this stuff. And it's only at the very end that you find out that this is not just a story from this world, but actually is related to the overall overarching plot, right?
But one of the fascinating things they definitely established very early on, I think that, again, even with knowledge of the manga, I think that the Pluto anime does a pretty good job of, is that each victim, each robot victim of these murders, essentially is an Afghan war vet, right? A veteran of what is known as the 39th Central Asian conflict. As of now, vaguely alluded to war that happened in the Middle East that was fought primarily between robots. And that the first 2 victims, who went by the names of Mont Blanc and North Number 2, both served in that war, both implied to have
part of the peacekeeping forces.
I guess peacekeeping force. Yes, that is why North Number 2 has 6 gun arms.
Like we say Afghanistan war, but it's like a general satire of, meddling in the Middle East war.
Well, yes. For important context, the original Pluto manga, which it proves that Urasawa is one of the hardest men to ever live. Pluto was written in 2003, just 2 years after 9/11, and was already like, these wars in the Middle East are bullshit, right?
Yeah. I mean, 2003 is the year of the start of the war in Iraq. So
yes. So that is probably the more quote-unquote correct analogy to use, but I think it's very telling that even here in 2023, unfortunately, that many of those parallels still hold a great degree of thematic weight.
And that's before we're even getting to the, AI stuff, right?
Also... It's like Gel, as the person with the least experience with Pluto here, technically, what did you think about that episode, basically?
I mean, from my perspective, I thought it was great. I mean, it's sort of like it's like the anime of the year prestige content. I feel like we have been missing this year.
Right,
if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, something that has actual substance to it, and is not just wow, cool robot. Although I suppose there is some of that, but not
we joke, but this is clearly a prestige production, right? It has your hour-length episodes. It has a bespoke opening that is not some J-pop song they salvaged somewhere. It's very much supposed to be just how Urasawa's manga are also marketed here in the West.
Right.
It is clearly supposed to be a different breed of anime. This is not your little nephews ninjas punching each other manga. Yeah. This is not a manga. This is a graphic novel.
Right. I mean, even Urasawa's art style, right? We should be clear if you haven't seen Pluto, its characters are not. I mean, they are clearly anime inspired, but it's a lot of middle-aged men. It's a lot of people with very diverse faces.
I mean, if there's anything Urasawa is known for as an artist, it's his ability to draw very distinctive characters. He draws those memorable faces, those faces of guys who've been through some shit. And they all look very, very very distinctive.
Serious.
They all have different noses and different eyebrows and different cheekbones and stuff like that. So the complete opposite of the sort of same face thing we often have in anime.
Yeah. I'd say I kind of talked about that with Under Ninja last time too, where I like when you have a variety of faces, right? But I would just follow up I know previously in the past I have used that sort of quote unquote prestige thing as a derogatory term when we're talking about
absolutely.
Chainsaw Man
or
and things like that,
or like Trigun Stampede earlier this year, right? Like,
was that this? My God!
But I don't feel like, and I haven't had time to really process what the difference is, but I don't get that out of this. Like, it does have that prestige feel, but it feels like it has actual substance to it.
I mean, because this fits the prestige aesthetic, when they did it with Chainsaw Man, it did make sense because Chainsaw Man was a show about a guy who is made of chainsaws.
Right, exactly.
Whereas this is, this could stand next to, I'm not saying it's as good, but it could stand next to like a Blade Runner, for example, in terms of like combining quote unquote schlocky tropes with real like musings on the condition of humanity and this and that. So
I think I was gonna say, I think the reason why Pluto can get away with its prestige styling is because Pluto clearly has something it wants to say. It clearly has a thesis, and it is fairly confident in it. And whether like you like agree with its thesis or not, I think that like Pluto clearly has a message that it feels it is imperative to communicate to its viewers, and that confidence and that sort of like clarity of purpose, I think gels very well with the very like prestige way in which it carries itself.
Yeah.
What I do find interesting about the production is that it's they obviously worked very hard on this. Lots of people worked on this, but you can also see that in the production because it's a little bit occasionally, and I'm not sure if this is a criticism, but it's like occasionally you see that you have very different artistic hands.
Yeah.
At work, you could have, for example, a scene that is very naturalistic, that is shot as if it were a live action series with actual actors standing on a set, and then all of a sudden it can shift entirely into a more animation style, so like with smears and stretching and lines becoming thicker and thinner to show intensity. There's a combination of like hand-drawn stuff, really well done CGI, and I can't shake the feeling there's even some live action sort of integrated in some way,
like rotoscoping,
or like rotoscoping of some kind. Yeah, but very photorealistic, like very photorealistic looking fire and explosions and things like that.
And I think that is like, I mean, I totally get where you're coming from, Aqua. I'm not like, I guess that's the thing. Having only watched one episode, I think I need to see more to know. Like, is this just just some aspect of the first episode, or is this indicative of the production as a whole? Because
I mean, the thing is, this is also just the reality of making a project like this. 8-hour-long episodes, animated at the highest quality. Of course, you're going to outsource stuff. Of course, you're going to give different people responsibility over different shots, different scenes. Right. So, of course, you're going to end up with something that is the sum of its parts.
That's also sort of how anime is produced. Go ahead.
Yeah. I did read. I think it might have been on the Wikipedia page, but the I read that they had help from a different studio on each episode, and I wonder if that's going to be like, are they going to have a slightly different style for every robot or something?
Wait until you see episode 5, the Trigger episode.
Oh man, which are the strongest robots with Trigger, dude? You think?
Yeah. So that's one of the I'm going to be
Brando, right? It had to be Brando.
Yeah. That's one of the things I'm going to be looking for moving into episode 2 is like, are we going to see a dramatic style shift at all, or or not? But I guess that would make sense if they were going to do it like, let's get different help for each robot or something. I don't know, but yeah, I really liked the first episode. I feel like it's been a while since we've had, or I've personally watched an anime that had some like something to say,
something that actually like sinks its claws into you, right?
and that there's like, we're touching on very relevant themes, even though this was 20 years ago that this manga started. Like,
I mean, it's one of these things of like, it's really odd because this is something that shows up a lot in anime, right? We had similar themes in something like The Gene of AI last season. We had Vivi. We've had Nier Automata. All those stories that are about how humanity transcends flesh, or what is the it's do androids dream of electric sheep, right? It is the idea of like what makes and I find it interesting. I wonder if this is a topic that speaks particularly to the Japanese or the Japanese entertainment industry.
I think it does because they have a background in animism.
Right, that is true, and because they also have, they are a country known for technological development and
I mean,
the religious and spiritual aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I was immediately watching this thinking of like the people having funerals for their Aibo, right?
Right,
like,
exactly.
So there's some of that, but as far as like obviously as we are at the very infancy of whatever we're calling AI these days, and already grappling with the ethical
models.
I mean, already grappling with like the ethical,
right?
And, like,
but the thing is, the AI that Pluto presupposes is completely different from what the AI we have now is, and what the discussion regarding AI is about.
Yes,
right?
I understand.
Like, if you would ask me, can North Number 2 like compose a beautiful symphony? I would say yes. If you ask me, can ChatGPT GPT make a beautiful symphony? I would say no. Like, I think absolutely.
Like, I'm not in support of what we're currently calling AI at all. I'm just saying that the question of when does that line cross over from what we have now to what we see in the anime?
But you see, it's the Turing test, Shell,
and it's that's not necessarily a easy question to answer, and that's the fun thing to explore, right?
Yeah.
So again, that just and I suppose that's something that's always been relevant through time here, but it feels even more relevant right now as we feel like, or at least people think they are, entering in this territory now.
Right. But the thing is, like, this is a timeless theme because we, as humans, have always been fascinated with the concept of humanity, right? What makes something human? Like, the very first science fiction story ever, Frankenstein, is about that question, right? So this is something that is a kind of timeless question, like, what is humanity? Can we make a human, or do you Detroit become a human?
Oh God.
I in all seriousness, I think, like, even just pointing that out, like, really does, like, make it very obvious the difference between, like, a work like a Pluto, what it is trying to say about, like, AI personhood, and I think the very clumsy attempts that we have seen.
Yes, not all these are good. Many of them are bad.
Generally Western media, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and sometimes, I mean, we've been talking about this animism stuff and all this stuff, and I sometimes wonder if it's just as simple as, like, Japanese audiences have had decades to be primed to just accept, like, non-human, or at least on paper non-human characters as characters worthy of empathy, and like,
it's that scene from iRobot,
animals, like,
and the West is Will Smith asking, can a robot compose a beautiful symphony, and Japan is the robot saying, I don't know, can you?
There was that one tweet with David Cager, right? It's like, can a robot become a human? Yoko Taro, can a human become a human?
Yeah, exactly. I guess what I'm saying is, like, it becomes more relevant the closer we get to technology at least looking like the science fiction version that we've been imagining, right? So, like, I thought I was thinking of, like, when rest in peace Robbie, when he dies, and,
Robbie,
they go to see his wife, and then she answers the door, and she looks kind of like a robot you would see now, like they have cafes that have robots that look like that, right? And it's like we're starting, as we start to bridge that gap, at least on the surface, that question becomes more interesting. So it's just,
I actually love, like, for better or worse, like, I totally agree that, like, this first episode does feel a little disjointed because it's simply covering, like,
it should have been 2 episodes, right?
The first volume of the manga, essentially. Right. But I do think that something can be said about its, like, intentional, like, 1, 2, 3 combo of, like, 3 characters it posits, like, it uses to communicate to the viewer immediately. Like, I remember when I read Pluto for the first time, and the transition from Mont Blanc's death to Robbie and like all the stuff with his wife to North Number 2 is like such a strong sequence of communicating this is what this story is really about. Right?
Yeah,
like,
I will say...
You go ahead, Joe.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Ira. You go first.
Yeah, you have the, like, Mont Blanc dies, and you have this, like, international pouring out of, like, love and care for Mont Blanc. They build this pedestal for him and all that. And then, yeah, Robbie...
Thrown in a dumpster.
Robbie dies, yeah, he's thrown in the dumpster, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and you need to be clear, like, again, Astro Boy's in a world where all robots have personhood, right? Like, this needs to be, like, really hammered, no matter what they look like, right? All robots in Astro Boy have personhood, and the difference between Mont Blanc and Robbie's, like, treatment after their deaths.
Yeah. Yeah, like Robbie's partner was pretty upset that Robbie died.
Yeah.
Like, it was...
Robbie the
was treated,
robot.
Right.
So...
But through the institution, he is treated like an object. You know,
Right.
Yes,
like
exactly.
a drone. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to say, I mean, in terms of the I guess format or length of the first episode, it would make sense to split it into 2 episodes. Like if they had ended it at the, when they kind of give the reveal of what this is going to be, that he's got to, we're going to have to, check in on the most powerful robots, right? Like that you could have made that the end of episode 1, and that would have been more than enough to keep me interested to watch. But I felt like what would be like, I guess, the second or even third episode, by the time you get to the the whole second story, like that's what it was like. Oh, that's where they got me. Like it was like, okay, this is what we're dealing with. Like the so I probably would have watched the second episode anyway, even if
that is true. Like the pacing, if this had been 3 episodes, the pacing would have been weird.
I would have had 2 episodes of irregular, like longer
than
a regular
episode. But if you made it like 3 regular length episodes,
you
would have a very long drawn out prologue. You would have a very long drawn out conversation with Robot Hannibal Lecter, and then you would have like that whole bit with Duncan and North Number 2 would be too short. Like
yeah. So it works.
Actually, I think in the grand scheme, it doesn't really matter that much. It's just like one of those realities of when you adapt source material, you kind of have to kind of fit it as best you can. To the medium
and also
you're working in.
It really doesn't matter because we live in an era of literally, this is Netflix. People pause and start watching again when they feel like it. They don't stop after 1 episode. Like the people decide their own pacing. Like
right,
yeah.
For better or worse, like.
So yeah, I mean that's a lot
Unless
to say.
Martin Scorsese has something to say about it.
That's a lot for 1 episode to say, and I wanted to give that all time to.
I mean, we were talking about 3 episodes essentially.
Yeah,
It's not that all.
Speaking of 3 episodes,
but yeah, no, I wanted to have time to get all our thoughts on it because I think this one's a contender. So
definitely.
Right.
If we can finish it before the end of the year.
We can finish it in time, yeah.
Oh god, yeah. I'm gonna have to fit this and Vinland Saga before the end of the year. Yeah.
Well, shout outs to North Number 2, the second realist to ever do it.
Yeah,
only because
North Number 1.
No, I was going to say because Mont Blanc was actually the realest to ever do it. I don't know why, man. I can't I'll say that there are some flashbacks to Mont Blanc that like really put the character together for me, but like for some reason, even I get kind of misty-eyed every time I have to go through Mont Blanc dying again. Like I don't know why. I just feel a great sense of sympathy and empathy for this chicken-headed Swiss robot.
I feel like his design is perfect for like
because
for like invoking the correct emotions.
It's just this
when you see
Tezuka
him.
like chicken robot wearing dungarees,
like all of these like gruff noir men, and then this one robot from the 60s.
Yeah,
like something about him something about him being the first murder victim is like, it's so fucked up. It's
Damn
like,
it,
why Mont Blanc? Why
He was
him?
the best of us. Damn it.
It is. I mean, it's so good because you're gonna meet some of the other world's strongest robots, and they'll like crack open a beer and be like, they will literally say Mont Blanc was the best of us, and they'll flash back to this fucking chicken-headed robot.
I mean, this is like you're watching like a serious like David Fincher serial killer movie, except all the murder victims are Muppets.
That'd be sick, though.
Oh, that'd be great, though. I'd watch that. All right.
The murders, yeah.
I think unless anybody has any other points they want to get in, we need to move on. But
I think so.
Yeah.
That's off to a really great start on that one.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Apothecary Diaries.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's fine. It's good.
All right. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
Episode 4 had like a clearly different episode director, storyboarder, and had a bunch of insane, crazy character animation, for mundane tasks. All right.
It was very like.
Are we
it reminded me of.
Are we talking goofy anime faces, or are we talking like
not necessarily
strangely well animated cooking or something?
Right,
okay.
Because the show overall is relatively lighthearted and has kind of like this goofy vibe. Like you will have characters being like chibi and like, you know, people getting like injured in comical ways, and the golden rule of something is funnier if there are fewer animation frames, all of being applied, all of that stuff. But this episode had some of it, but it was mostly focused on like really like detailed, slow, meticulous portrayals of very domestic, very regular things. Like it really focusing on like humanizing the characters through movement.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah, like the premise of this latest or not latest because we've only watched episode 4.
Right.
Is basically Mao Mao's reputation as an apothecary has reached even the ears of the emperor himself.
And the emperor who just randomly shows up at the beginning of the episode.
Yes,
and I mean it's really weird because he's talked about as a quote unquote Chinese emperor of that era was talked about like basically a god. And then he shows up in this episode and is just some guy, and
he's just
you need
a guy.
You like blink twice and be like, oh wait, that's the emperor.
Right.
Like yeah.
But it works well, right? Because in many ways, it's almost like the emperor is sort of just a means to like move this story in a certain direction. Right.
I mean, he is also just a cog in the machine that is the court, you know.
Right.
Like.
But yeah, Emperor basically wants Mao Mao to cure or at least nurse the other head concubine, the
blue concubine.
Yeah, yes, whose child also died because she did not heed Mao Mao's warning.
And it's important because her child was the only male heir.
Right.
Yes. And basically, Mao Mao's given the task of like nursing her back to health, but has to deal with Li Yua's like. Very, very catty, very very court. It's very court politicsy oriented handmaidens. Yeah, and I enjoyed this episode because I enjoyed the parts of this episode that kind of get into the like the musings and the struggles of mortality and life and like. And especially in a time period like this where it's like, that kind of like, look, infant mortality, even without, arsenic laced cosmetics, infant mortality was still fairly high in any era before modern medicine.
It's like basically 1 and 2, right?
Right. And so I think it's easy to kind of fall into that trap of, people back in the day just didn't care as much. But it's like, no, I think they probably cared a lot. It's just that you didn't have a lot of, female like authored histories written of that period. So it's like, of course, a lot of this is actually like a growing like theory in historiography is that did people actually not care about infant mortality, or is that most history was written by like aristocratic men,
right?
And so
who only cared about infants if they were like heirs, or whether they were heirs or not heirs, like
And so we don't actually really know a great deal of how did mothers in history feel about their deceased children. And the growing suspicion is actually they probably cared a lot because that's what humans do.
Yes.
Yeah.
But and that they kind of get into that in this episode pretty well. I will say this episode does get a little like, I don't know, like, how do I put it? Kind of like YA novel, like power fantasy. A bit
Yes,
of like,
it is very.
Mao Mao knows how to cure everybody.
There's a
and
lot
it's
of
all
that.
these dumb bitches getting in the way.
I mean, it is very funny to see Mao Mao do like a complete character 180 when she finds out that the one handmaiden has still been using the like
Right.
poisonous makeup, and she's like giving the like frigging
Just like
breaking
slapping her.
speech
Yeah,
of like, yes, you foolish woman, how dare you? Like, it is like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very weird. What I did like was the fact that it is so dull and mundane. Like, there was no like big murder attempt. There was no like massive like big virus or a massive
Sort of
poisoning
just,
or anything. It was just
just
someone
in 3 months and nurse this person back to health because they almost died.
right, and the quote unquote culprit is like just this woman who was just not being
Negligence,
very
right?
was not very smart, and it was like, oh yes, I guess I wasn't allowed to use this makeup anymore. Oops, sorry. Like, yeah. I mean, very unrealistic that she, doesn't get arrested and caned and hanged, but yeah.
Right. Well, they did mention that the eunuch responsible for
It was supposed to collect all the powder and
was punished with flagellations. So it's like they don't show it, but there is still that implication that like it is still fairly high stakes in the concubine's court.
Well, I am looking at this clip that you posted, Iro, and yes, I can appreciate the unnecessarily well animated two people eating at the table here.
But I do like there's like a weird running gag in the episode of like Mao Mao getting kicked out of rooms. Yeah. But what I really like is that it sort of combines because you always get the shot of like viewed from the side, the like paper sliding door and then the outside, and they always use that as an establishing shot to show like the intrigue that is going on inside and what the people outside aren't allowed to know, and it's very like artsy and filmy, and then but they also always recycle that shot to do the dumb running gag of her getting kicked out.
Like just the Mao Mao bounce.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty nice, like a way to combine quote unquote highbrow and lowbrow cinematic motifs. Like,
yeah. All right.
Nicely done.
Well, it sounds like that's a fun show, if nothing too crazy, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
It is a perfectly it's a perfectly like enjoyable show. I would compare it to Mushishi, because Mushishi is also like, the doctor arrives in a new town. And then doctor, we have this bullshit problem. We try to solve it with this bullshit method. And then the doctor's like, no, obviously you shouldn't do that. You should use my bullshit method. And then they use that, and it's all solved.
It kind of sounds like the type of show that I'm usually the only one watching and not the other way around, but
I will say Mushishi is better. Like, it has better vibes, it has more personal drama, but it sort of reminded me of that. This is not a show about medicine. You're like, this is like all the medicine is made up. Like
that one specific aspect.
Traditional medicine.
Yeah. All right. We got to move on. So let's go on to Spy Family season 2.
Spy Family.
I have caught up on this.
Hooray!
I've watched all the episodes.
Spy Family.
Let me just say, I felt a little weird. It was very weird to me that they did episode 2 and 3 as like these like throwaway Damien Yuri episodes. Like, I mean, I know that was last episode that we talked about that, but in the grand scheme of things, as I have now watched, I think we're 5 episodes in now. Like, I'm surprised they didn't just jump into the next arc and then you throw those in the middle of the season. But
because the next arc is long.
Okay, or throw them in the somewhere in the tail end when you're trying to get to the end or whatever, right?
It felt long when we were reading the manga.
Yeah,
week to week when we're still on that boat.
Well, mercifully, these 2 episodes do bring us back to the Forger family. We have But one episode before we get to the boat arc is the Anya's quest for the magic macaroons, right?
Yes,
Which was
the
Yeah,
pastry
good.
of knowledge.
That's a good one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was very good, and then we get into the setup for what looks like it's going to be the next actual story arc.
Yeah.
Which is some much needed, I guess,
Family vacation.
some your screen time.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like yours position has always been like the weirdest one to me.
Yes.
With her being like the her almost split personality of how she is most of the time, and then how she is when she's the Thorn Princess or whatever.
Right, like it's that weird thing of like Lloyd is kind of allowed. Lloyd's background as a spy is allowed to be played for both drama and comedy, whereas like yours physical prowess for much of Spy Family is almost just purely comic relief. Right? Look how fast you can throw this ball. Look how fast you can jump off a building. Look, all this stuff, right?
Like how she can smash this exoskeleton that I spent 10 years working on. Yes.
Rip it with her bare hands and huck it, right? It's and I think so. I guess for some, the boat arc is considered like many boat arcs in manga is considered controversial. But I think personally, I broadly came away from it. I think it is a very necessary arc because it is an opportunity to finally like put yours double life into focus. The premise of this arc is basically yours given a mission to protect an important VIP on this cruise liner, and it's just like at the same time Lloyd and Anya like end up there, right? Like basically,
right.
And Yor has to kind of like maintain the cover that she's there for a business trip while like,
doing her job.
Well, also her family's here.
Yeah, exactly, right. And Anya Anya, I guess, and
and there's bits of her questioning, why am I still doing this, right? Because she doesn't need to take care of her brother anymore. Which that's the part I'm talking about, where I feel like her. Not that I take much of the plot of Spy Family seriously or whatever, but it is a little weird to me that why she's still doing it. Like, that is a legitimate question I've had. It's like, yeah. So, I think I guess this is only the first episode, so I don't know what's going to happen. You all do, but things go. I'm sure things are going to predictably go very wrong as soon as they were like. Oh, I don't know if you guys actually watched that. I don't remember if you guys actually watched that episode yet, but
not yet.
She has her I guess ex-mob wife is the VIP that she's protecting.
Right.
And she's like,
right.
Oh, I want to take my little baby son out to get some fresh air, even though we were told to stay in the room where it's safe. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to go horribly wrong. So I
mean, escort missions, they tend to go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
now this arc was the greatest. The joke amongst the fan base is that this arc was the greatest battle fought between Endo, the author of Spy Family, and his editor, his Weekly Shonen Jump editor, Lin. For those who are not aware, Endo has admitted that his personality tends to run much more dour and dark than Spy Family's typical tone.
Right.
And so he is the one who is constantly trying to inject like dark drama into Spy Family. Whereas his editor Lin is like, no, bro, it's got to be happy, smile, think happy thoughts, funny, haha, right?
I mean, then again, but this editor is also famously the editor of Chainsaw Man, so...
Yes, yeah. Well, I think it's more that editor Lin is just famous for like having a good handle on how to bring out the best of the works he was assigned to, and it's
absolutely.
And the joke is that
this is where the like infamous Endo doesn't like Anya thing comes from that interview where he just said of like, I was a bit surprised that Spy Family became my big hit because it is not exactly like the manga I envisioned myself making,
which is totally normal. Like,
absolutely.
It's just a silly clickbait. Like, I'm sure that dude like cares about the work he does, but it does speak to like how much a good editor can maybe bring out your like unintended strengths. But yeah, no, this boat arc is some real like. is your gonna how bad is it gonna go for your versus how funny is it gonna go for her? And there's a lot of that in this boat arc of like, is a child about to get murdered, or is a child about to get murdered for comedy?
Yeah.
I mean, we also get to look forward to like what will probably be like 2 straight episodes of your just murdering,
killing people.
Okay, well, I'm certainly on board with that.
Killing the entire cast of a hypothetical No More Heroes 4.
Yeah, or like the entire cast of like, you know, that one episode of every Lupin show where a bunch of assassins try to kill Lupin at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, you're arguably standing at the top of the pyramid of the problematic waifu pyramid, right? But,
at least in terms of body count, yes, most certainly.
So yeah, I mean, not much more to say about it. I mean, this episode was really more setup. Not a whole lot actually happens yet, so we'll see as we get into it. And you know, other than that, it's Spy Family. There's still more, you know, lighthearted kind of fun joke stuff in there, but it's good. So I am looking forward to some more your finally. So.
Yeah. Some more your.
Well, now to go back to the bad anime.
Yeah. So let's move on. For the final time, I will talk about 16-bit Sensation.
Oh, this is the final. This is it.
Yeah. I watched them anymore. I watched the 2 most recent episodes out of just like morbid curiosity at this point.
Oh,
to
wow!
See, like,
all right, because
where they were heading.
I only watched episode 4. I did not have time to watch episode 5, so I really want to know what it is about this 5th episode that finally broke you.
Wait. Is it that they are working on the greatest visual novel of all time, and they have their heroine already, and they're like, but she needs something iconic, something like a catchphrase, and that main character who has traveled back in time will say something, why don't you make her say, ooh, goo?
No, they've already, that ship specifically sails in the latest episode where that's not possible anymore. Because
that why you dropped it then? Like,
yeah, so
can't do it anymore. You're like, oh fuck this.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there is anything like one specific thing. It's literally everything that the show has done in the past 2 episodes.
It's a really bad show. I fucking hate myself every time I watch it.
And
it's miserable.
The only thing that I was enjoying, like the weird like bits about how they made games, you know, in 20 to 30 years ago, there was kind of not really much of that at all in the past 2 episodes.
Also, that premise falls apart because of how the time travel works.
Yeah, so they do finally lock in how the time travel works. And the way it works is, if you recall, the main girl received a bag full of old VNs from a mysterious game shop.
Yes.
And when she opened a copy of the game, it teleported her back in time. So the rules that have been established are that when she opens that specific game, she is taken to about when the day that game gets released.
Oh, okay.
Right, but she doesn't go to like the studio that made the game. She
she goes
on Shibuya Scramble.
Well, she goes to where her current job is, but it's another old VN studio that nobody ever heard of.
Right.
And then after that studio puts out their game, she goes back to her present day. And so the rules.
And the important thing to note is that these VNs are one use only.
Yes, so I was gonna say, like, I think that's actually
so needlessly complicated.
I actually think this is an interesting concept, but it just doesn't. They don't really do anything with it.
Right?
But basically, she has a limited amount of bullets, and she can pick when time she goes back. Right. Mm-hmm. So like.
So by the time she move the time stream in the correct
well, okay.
Like
everybody stop guessing, because you're probably not going to get it because it doesn't actually go anywhere. Because it's like, yes, those are the logical. You guys are correct. Those are the logical ways where the story would go.
Coming up with way more interesting ways.
With the more interesting ways. So like, I love all your ideas better. I'm just saying that's not what they do. Yeah, so she can pick and choose when she goes back. And so, for example, after the second time, she's now figured everything out. She's like, okay, well, I'll pick the game that is the closest to the last time I was there. So the last time she was there was 1996. So she picks canon, which came out in 1999, and that's why she can no longer invent Ugu because it has now been invented in the timeline, and she can't go back any further. So
this girl is like really fucking dumb because like
yes, she is.
Because like some character just makes an offhand remark of like, if you're really a time traveler, then you shouldn't fuck around too much, or else you'll change the future. And so, explicitly, they have already shot themselves in the foot because now the character goes out of her way to not show off any of her like modern like character design or talk about any of the trends of like where game design is going. Because then she goes, "Oh no! If I say that, then I'll change the future. So I can't tell them about like." Where the kawaii trends are shifting,
right?
And so it's like so we don't even get the fun of like her introducing like those concepts like years before they become.
Then why is there even time travel involved other than making the main character go, "Oh, they did it like this back then"? Like
that's literally it.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
There is no answer to that question. There is no good answer to that question. I think what they start to imply is that regardless of what she does, just her influence being there is changing the future, because we see later on that games are disappearing off of her shelf in the modern day, and that even though she hasn't really done anything directly, the company that she's been popping in to help is much more successful than they were. So like in the late,
sheer enthusiasm for the genre is...
and I thought we were going to go somewhere fun with this, because when she leaves 1996, basically the big conflict, and I think this is probably as far as you watch, G, was that the main kid, he loves the PC-98 so much and refuses to program for Windows, and she has to convince him to program for Windows. And so the way they convince him is that you can also make the PC-98 version, and he's determined to keep the PC-98 alive, because he's now figured out, he deduces that, since this girl, he actually believes her now that she's a time traveler. And since she had no idea what the PC-98 is, he's deduced that the PC-98 has disappeared has gone extinct.
Hold up.
In the future.
She's a big fan of retro visual novels, but she doesn't know what a PC-98 is.
I will now refer to G's statement that she's a complete idiot. So, yeah, she's really, really dumb. And she's always making references to the future and not occurring to her that these people have no idea what she's talking about. Anyway, so I thought, and one of the reasons why I finally watched the latest episode is like, okay, are they gonna make it so this kid like overcomes the odds and makes the PC-98 continue to live on into the 2020s?
It's like how the Sega Genesis still is like huge in Brazil.
That was not the case.
Oh no! What actually happens?
Nothing happened. They just went on and made the Windows games, and they were successful because of their, I don't know, passion they put into their game or whatever. And now they're talking, and in the latest episode, it's like, oh, well, now we're popular enough that we're going to get an all ages console release.
Oh,
and but all the money's going to the boss's head. What's going to happen? And I'm like, I don't care about any of this. I just want to see the weird, like, how we made games, 25 years ago.
Really shitty about this premise that, like, or now that we know the rules of the time travel, it's like, the whole point of this was to, like a pig in shit, languish in 90s nostalgia, right? Wow, yes. 92, what a great year for video games, or whatever, 96. But, like, now we're in 99, and the implication is the timeline's going to keep moving forward. And it's like, I don't want to reminisce about 2003, you assholes. Like, that's not what I came here for.
Yeah, that's we're getting too close.
I want the good nostalgia, not the bad nostalgia.
Yeah.
And they totally threw out the, like, it was just sitting there on a platter for them with the, like, she could have shown her future artwork. She does, so I think part of convincing the kid was she does finally get her iPad to turn on, right? That was like the final straw that, like, he would realize, oh, you must be from the future because you have this futuristic device. And she does show him, like, one...
The kid manages to, like, basically, like, jury rig
a plug
the iPad
to
take AA batteries.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, theoretically, I mean, if you had a charger, you could still plug into a wall. But I guess she doesn't have the charger. But anyway, she does turn on her iPad for a second, and he does see like one of her modern drawings. But that's like the only thing that they even come close to getting into that territory.
That part I kind of did appreciate, and this is not to like toot my own horn as an artist who lives in the 21st century, but like I am glad that they did lead into like somebody from the 90s, if they saw how far digital art would go, would be completely fucking mind blown by like the filters and tools and all of the like fancy ways in which digital can now like effortlessly emulate almost any medium.
I mean, I remember this was like a few months ago. You explained like full Photoshop brushes to me.
Right.
I was like, "What the fuck?"
and
that's what people meant all this time. That's how they do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So like, if I brought my iPad Pro 12.9 inch whatever to 1992 and showed it to somebody, that I could convince them that I was a time traveler, right?
You would get burned on the stake for witchcraft.
So anyway, all that saying, the show sucks. It's failed me in every way, and I'm done.
Alrighty then.
Let's move on.
Yay!
Hooray.
Rest in piss, 16-bit.
Let's talk about a good show.
Also, wait a second. If it's 1999, why is the name of the show 16 bits?
Well, they started in 1992.
I mean, yeah.
Have all the characters visibly aged?
Barely.
No.
The main guy has glasses now, and he's now that he's aged from 15 to 22, but he's otherwise looks the same. Let's let that show die, and let's talk about a good show. Let's talk about Frieren, and I have also marathoned this one. I've caught up. I watched 7 episodes in the past 48 hours of Frieren. Quite frankly, I don't quite remember where the line ends between what we talked about and where we left off, but
Frieren once again proving my theory that every manga ever, when left alone for too long, will eventually turn into a shonen battle anime.
Yes, that is where we left off, was the demons in the town and confronting the demons, right?
Yes.
So I will say I actually like I don't want Frieren to be a battle manga. I hope that's not permanently where we're headed.
You get to do this once as a treat,
but as a punctuation mark to the previous 6 episodes of like this slow sort of like low stakes, really chill, let's study magic adventure. We're fighting demons, and it looks really good.
Well, also, most of all, Frieren is literally indestructible, super mega, awesome cheat skill hero who isn't afraid of anything.
But it feels cool this time.
We knew that already. I mean, this is why
it only feels cool once.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. I don't want Frieren to turn into this all the time. But as a like, and I you guys would know if it does or not, but I hope it doesn't. But as a like one time sort of punctuation mark here, just to kind of like show off exactly how powerful Frieren is and all that.
It's the fucking World of Cardboard thing, right? It's Superman has been chilling with all the regular people, and now he like has to cut loose for once. Like,
it's fun, right? Like in the same way that every now and then it's fun to eat ice cream for dinner. It is fun to see like Frieren, Frieren. The character is doing the thing every single one of us wants a character like Oran in Final Fantasy X to actually do, right? Of like introduce the old veteran who from the last JRPG adventure, and he just kept all of his stats and equipment, right? That is that's Frieren, and that's kind of what happens with these episodes.
It was I don't remember which episode it was, but it was really badass when the demon comes to kill her in the prison, and she's like, "Oh, you think you're stronger than me?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just like, no, I'm stronger than your boss." It's like, it was very good.
What I really like is that they sort of establish that the demons the whole thing is like, oh, the demons only put on human affectations to get closer to their prey, right? And
Yeah,
then
we talked.
in one
We talked
episode,
about
the
that
like,
last time. Yeah.
and then in one episode, the demon leader is like musing philosophically about how his purpose is to research magic and to, develop new spells. That is the purpose of his life. And I'm like, that's bullshit. The purpose of your life is to murder people.
Yeah.
And then you sort of realize that whole thing about researching magic is also kind of an affectation, because when they're fighting, you realize that, like, why would you need fancy blood magic when you have a spell where you point at someone and they explode? Like,
Yes,
what would you
right.
need any other spell? Like,
Yeah. I think. Coming back to the demon thing, because we did cover that pretty extensively last time, but I will say, having seen it for myself now, it does feel a little weird, because like I know they're saying, I know what they're saying as the explanation of like, they're only using those words because they know they'll elicit a response and they don't have any actual feelings or whatever. And I don't know. It's an iffy, like, I didn't, when you guys were describing it last time, I was imagining like,
demon-ass demons.
Yeah, demon-ass monster-looking demons.
We saw that dude earlier in the show, right? Who's this like hulking beast, right?
Yeah, and then they show up and they're basically just people with horns, right? And I'm like, I could see how it feels uncomfortable. I think they go through
the idea
great.
Is like they have evolved into this shape to
right, and I think they go through great lengths to like keep it from being weirdly racist. But
I mean, that's the thing. Right? The thing is, like, we here, quote unquote, in the quote unquote West, have been so brain poisoned by every fucking fantasy story ever, trying to do a hackneyed racism metaphor and like, always failing.
Job of it,
right. And then here's the show that is just like, no, that's not what this is going to be about. Here, the demons are just demons, and then we look at this and be like, can you do that? Like,
we're always like, it's like there always has to be some kind of moral ambiguity or something, right?
But, and the thing is, like, at least when in, for example, D&D, they say, oh, there are no inherently evil races anymore. I get the feel that makes sense, because at least in D&D, like the orcs, they are a people, they are a culture. They have individuals, they have a religion, they have customs. Whereas here in Frieren, what do we know about the demons? We only know that they are the spawn of the Demon King. They literally only exist as tools for his evil. And in that regard, that makes it more like easier to stomach the fact that they are just evil and everything vaguely humanizing that they do is just affectation.
Yeah, so that's fine. When you're seeing it on screen, you're like, oh, it's effective. Whatever they're doing is effective, because you're like, oh, it feels like
empathy and
and I feel like even they're, I don't know if it's intentional or not, drawing some parallel to the elves, right? Because like Frieren gives her holes.
Yeah.
And that's the point, right? Where we are meant to doubt Frieren. Like, we are meant to think of like, are you sure, Frieren? Like, are you sure you're not being a little bit racist?
Is Frieren being a racist grandma? Like,
So I think there is, like I said, they go through great lengths to cover their tracks on that one. And I think it's okay. It just, I can see why some people raise eyebrows on that.
And that's all well and good, but let's talk about how fucking cool the fight is. Right?
Yes.
So I love like everything about it, really. I love the whole premise of like, she does have to entrust Fern and Stark to deal with the the demons in town, so that she can deal with the big problem.
And it's a good moment for them, right? Because, like, this is sort of re-echoing the whole thing with Stark and the dragon, right? Which is that these two characters have always grown up under the shadows of, like, legendary heroes, right? Aizen and Frieren were both part of the heroes party. Not a heroes party, the heroes party. And, like, the weird expectations they find themselves trying to live up to. And this episode is kind of, again, like, no, you kids are all right. Like,
right. I mean, the thing is,
this is why I've like talked about the show as like being isekai adjacent, but not falling into the same pitfalls, because there are plenty of isekai shows out there that are like, and they were trained by the hero, so they're super strong and don't know that they're super strong and just go thinking that they're weak, even though they're really strong, right? And that's like incredibly tedious, and we all hate it. But then here, like, because of the tonality of the show, it sort of digs into the more into the idea of like they are being held back by their own opinions of themselves, right?
Right. Like, as much as the show... Oh, go ahead.
The fact is that, like, Frieren and Eisen set the bar so high that Fern and Stark don't even realize they're pretty good themselves.
Yes.
Like, especially when you see, like, Fern just winning the fight against the demon leader by just spamming one spell, and he's like, "Oh, but her magic is so primitive and simple. Wow, how could she possibly beat me?" It's like, dude, she only needs one spell because it's at something that
kill demon spell.
Right?
It's like enough times you will simply die.
Yes. You know, like, I mean, Fern, right, is like, yes, if we're using.
Sorry, you can't jump over my Hadokens, buddy. I'm just
spamming fireball.
It's such a cheap trick, but I do love when it's just like Fern and Lugner are in their, like, you know, strongest sword versus strongest shield battle, right?
Yeah.
And like all Fern does is just increase the rapidity of how fast she's shooting. Yeah, just she increases her fire rate. It's like the demon's like, oh shit.
How can complex magic that involves me wounding myself to create a weird tentacle possibly lose against her, like, target-seeking missiles?
Yeah, good old rock. Nothing beats that.
And then on the flip side, you've got Stark fighting a sorcerer with 8 strength who took proficiency in axes, but it's not working out for her. Which, you know, that was also kind of a cool fight too. And this show looks great. Like,
it sure does.
They really went all out. Like, it's consistent. It looks great every episode.
Great fight choreography. Like,
they stepped it up.
In general.
Even this show with its, like, laid back tone cannot resist doing the anime thing of, like, oh, it's, like, relatively laid back, and but then as soon as they start fighting, everyone is a, like, world class gymnast and doing flips and crazy wuxia things. Like,
you know, shout outs to even, like, the small moments, right? Like
insanely well animated Stark putting a coat on,
yeah.
Or like the first person shots of, like, Fern, like, you know, the echoing of, like, Fern and Stark both getting that first person shot of, like, walking, and it's like, yeah, it's just, I was joking with Iro when we watched this episode. I said, this is some real, like, oh, we got that one web animator who has, like, 400,000 followers on Twitter who work on this episode sort of vibe, right?
Yeah.
Eisen fighting like Yoda in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, something like that, you know?
Yeah,
just like, a little guy spinning around.
Not that this show will necessarily be all fighting from now on, but...
No, absolutely not.
Like, a thing to thematic thing, like, this sort of sets up a thing that will recur a lot thematically, which is like, if you cannot imagine yourself winning a fight, you're not going to win the fight.
Right.
But
the second you like see the path to victory and just decide to take the path to victory, you will win.
Very shonen anime, like. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I care about Stark and Fern in their fights. I did not give a shit about Frieren murdering like a gazillion demons, like.
Right.
Well, she doesn't actually get to do that in the episode yet, but she's about to be right. But or I guess
I think it's just because, like, Frieren is a character that holds so much more power than anybody else in the setting. Right. Like, she and so it at least right now, I would say, like, Frieren is at her most compelling when it is her, like, grappling with, like, the relationships that she has inadvertently let, you know, literally die on the vine over her long lifespan, right? Like, because that is in essence where she is actually most vulnerable narratively. But when Frieren's fighting, it's like, you know how this is going to go. Like,
I mean, like I said, it's cool
that they kind of needed to remind people what Frieren is, because for the last 7 episodes, she's mostly been like, oh yeah, I guess. Oh, let's
Yeah,
do this. Like being the like sort of passive, super
Yes.
like
Right.
lazy garbage gremlin that the two have
Yeah,
to
I
take
mean,
care of.
right.
Like
it's like she lets herself get eaten by the mimic because she's already level 20. It's like, what is this
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
gonna do to her anyway?
yeah.
Yeah, so it's a. I think it's cool as a like. You got to remind him
It's a treat.
sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Like you got to
Let the
remind him
kids know.
sometimes. Let the
Is this
kids
gonna
know.
be? Is this gonna be like that episode, Eero? Is it gonna be like this episode of Deca Ranger where Doggy Kruger transforms and kicks everyone's ass, and then the next episode is about how the Deca Rangers need to learn not to always let in clean up all their messes?
Right. Like,
Yeah.
kind of.
So
Yeah.
go ahead, Ira. What were you gonna
Yeah,
say?
it's not going to be this all the time. Right?
Yes.
And,
Yeah,
and it shouldn't be either, right?
Yes. So as a like I said, it's like a punctuation mark to the things that we've been doing. I think it's really cool, and yeah, I think now having caught up and seen the full scope of everything Freeren's doing, I'm really enjoying it a lot. There's a lot of range to it. I feel like more than just the chill kind of one-off little adventures or whatever. There's a lot of heart to it, a lot of charm, and sometimes it's cool action stuff too, I guess. So
I have a question though for Eero and G.
Huh.
Would it have been possible to have this as the season finale?
No.
No, I don't like.
Happen like this is, and I mean, if you have an 8-episode length, if you have a 9-episode season,
Right,
then
right.
yes, right.
But there is no like cozy one-off filler chapters after this that they could have moved to move this back to the season
because
finale.
they are still like constantly moving, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think that is the main issue. Is that like once the like core the quote unquote core of the quest appears, which is go to the north to find the place where Freeren's master spoke with the dead. Like once that becomes the core like driving force behind their journey. Unfortunately, the narrative does like make it very explicit where they are relative to that journey.
Right.
Like the whole like 21 years since Himmel's death thing, like kind of does. It's not quite a spy family. They can't quite.
Right.
Like, I think they could get away with like judiciously moving certain things
stuff,
around.
yeah.
But like it would all be within the same like hopper, so to speak, between the big climaxes, right? So it's like you could have like climax B, and between climax A and climax B, you could maybe switch some of those plot lines around.
Right.
Once you hit climax B, it's like no, that's like a narrative.
Yeah, you can't move things from
yeah.
after climax B to before climax B. Like
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're kind of stuck with this, and it does make me wonder how this anime is going to end.
well, they're gonna get a couple extra episodes because of the way they started, right? Isn't that?
I mean, this is going to be 2 course, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay,
that
too.
is true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
there's a lot of time to figure that out.
So there's
I
going to
will
be like
just say-
28 episodes of this. Like,
Yeah.
I will just say one more thing. My dungeon master brain watching this has been like, can I convert this into like a campaign or something? Like,
Classic.
there's a lot of. Can I steal this episode into like some kind of event or something? I don't know.
Oh, you
It's
probably
been-
could.
There's
no
a
one's
lot
going
of
to
good,
notice.
a lot of good material in there.
In fact, there's probably modules out there already. Like
some classic D&D interpretation. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Overtake. G, you're still watching this?
I still am, yes. Though I am 1 episode behind, so I only have episode 5 to talk about, I believe.
Okay.
But I am still watching this show for some reason. So
lots of Sunday
That's-
shows this season.
Yeah, it's not a ringing endorsement, but
no, I guess it's like I don't know. I don't like. I don't know. Maybe I do like this show, or maybe I like aspects of this show, and so that is why I'm still here. But here I might as well just describe like what the episode I saw was, which is it's another race episode, except it's not the kind of race you think it is. This week
dear.
they decided to run a 5K.
Okay.
Okay. This is gonna be a team building exercise.
Yeah, basically, the head of Komaki Motors, Komaki Senior, the sort of like the boisterous kind of goofy owner of their like hometown race team, decides to enroll Haruka and enroll members of his team in this like kind of community 5K, kind of designed to attract tourism to the area. You know, classic shit, right?
Sure.
And so they are, you know, competing in this 5K, as are Belzorio, the rival team that I've spoken about in a couple of past episodes. And so it is kind of this like, they're racing but not really racing, if that makes sense, right? Because like they're like on the track rivalries come to a head, but in a completely different context. And it kind of has the effect of like, I guess the intent of the episode is kind of to like humanize these racers in ways that they kind of can't on the actual racetrack because they are in cars. The two Belsorio racers whose names I actually tried to remember this time around are Satsuki and Toshiki. Satsuki is the like blonde-haired wonderkin genius that I kind of mentioned like last podcast, whereas Toshiki is the kind of dour, hardworking one. And
Right.
you know, them and Haruka, so those three kind of lead the pack of this 5K, and it kind of lets them just talk in a way you can't really do in a car race about what motivates them, where they came from, right? Like Haruka and Toshiki kind of both realize, oh, like as racers, they both come from like fairly like working class backgrounds as car racers, right? Like Haruka delivers newspapers in his spare time. Toshiki was like a mover or something. And like, you know, it's just a classic, like, oh, okay, even though we have these, like, really, really bitter rivalries between each other, like, at the end of the day, you know, we're all,
Humanize your rivals.
doing it for the... Yeah, we're all doing it for the love of the race, and, you know, that's not going to mean we're going to become friends overnight, but, you know, you are a human being and not just a, like, target of my...
We have come to terms.
Yeah, essentially. And yeah, that's kind of the episode, right? Like, there's
that's kind of it.
It's just like,
yeah.
well, it's like they're racing, but also it's like you know, it's sort of a metaphor for their actual race careers. Them running this 5K, right? Like Satsuki, the kind of blonde-haired wonderkin genius kid, kind of goes on this like pretty long like tangent about who I assume is a very famous racer whose name I have already forgotten. I'm sorry, Zig. I'm sure he's a very important man. And how he won some big race in some car-based event. I don't even know if it was F1. I'm really sorry.
It's so inspiring that when that guy won that race back then.
Yeah, it's a real person. I did double check. He was talking about a real person. And like his whole thesis is like this person went on to become one of the greatest racers of all time, basically because the guy who was like close neck and neck with him in this race suffered like catastrophic engine failure at the very last second.
Right.
And like
this has happened multiple times throughout the history of F1.
Right. And his thesis is basically what actually creates a legendary racer. Is it the strength of their machine? Is it the strength of the racer? And his thesis is no, it's luck.
It's opportunity.
And so, yes, it's opportunity. It is your ability to capitalize on favorable opportunities and mitigate unfavorable ones. And just as that happened, Haruka's like shoes, like the soles, like come off his shoes, and he like falls to the ground. And there's
real
a pretty
subtle.
Good, yes,
subtle.
Right. there is a pretty good bit where Koya, the photographer guy, like runs all the way to where Haruka is to be like, no, I won't let you like stop running. I'll always be behind you as both your capital D daddy and lowercase d daddy. And throws Haruka his pair of shoes, to which Haruka responds, what the fuck, old man? I'm not going to wear your old man shoes, and just runs the rest of the race barefoot.
Okay, so I looked it up, and the F1 driver that is being referred to is James Hunt, who was in the rival of Niki Lauda. And
that is
what they probably didn't mention is that the quote-unquote engine failure that Lauda suffered also like burned off half of his face, as depicted in the pretty good movie Rush.
They did not mention that part, no.
Yeah.
They did not mention the part where he was immolated.
Yikes!
But hey, that James Hunt guy seemed pretty cool. Am I right?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Who's played by
Yikes.
Thor.
Well,
So,
all right.
I'm
I mean,
still watching this show, I guess.
I mean, you said this is really. I mean, it's really more like a character show, right? So I mean,
Yes.
it makes sense that that's what they're focused on. So
I mean, it does end in a kind of a good, like, heartwarming bit where, like, Haruka enters the race because, like, one of the prizes for winning the race was 5 pounds of Wagyu meat.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Like,
I think that's actually a thing, isn't it?
in 5Ks? Or you mean
I
like,
don't
Oh,
know.
no, this is
There's
not
a prize for stuff like.
I definitely remember there being a competition where like beef is the reward.
I mean,
that's all right, man.
I
Honestly,
feel like that's
That might be one way to. That might be one way to
Yeah,
finally
not
get me to run a
uncommon.
5K.
And,
But yes,
you know.
and it turns out that Haruka really wanted to win that beef to give to the senior Komaki, who like not only owns the team but like took Haruka in when he became orphaned, and it's it's sort of a heartwarming like, hey,
Yeah. He
this is
can
a
afford
gift
it.
for you for all you've done for me, and it's like, all right, kid, you're okay, despite your like weirdly taciturn personality.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm also watching because Koya's ex-wife is like painfully attractive. That also might be
Oh
it.
yeah.
Psycho,
yeah.
the photographer lady. Like, god damn.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of good looking shots in this.
Because she was in the first episode, right?
Yeah, her.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know,
Wait.
well. Anyways, I digress. I'm still watching Overtake for some reason.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll. I guess we'll have 3 episodes to catch up on next time, but yeah, we'll get there. Let's move on to Migi and Dali. Still probably my personal favorite show this season, and I feel like they really peaked with the latest episode in particular, but both episodes are pretty good. The first one, just real quick, was both hilarious and disturbing because the boys, the twins, go to school and they need to investigate the kid at the top of the class who's like this rich asshole or whatever, and the only way he'll talk to them is if they'll get his attention is if they can get their grades higher. But it turns out they are not academically smart at all.
Oh, really?
Which was very surprising to me. But they are very bad at school, and so one day,
an orphanage, yeah.
One day, as they
grew up in an orphanage, like they
as
never
they're
learned arithmetic.
Well, the character, like originally when the show starts, they're kind of painted as like these perfect, like know it all super geniuses, and they're not at all. That's what the show has proven.
I actually really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They have they other than their weird acrobatics that they can pull to appear as two people, they're kind of bad at everything else. But so.
When you invested all of your skill points into athletics.
They have
acrobatics.
Max dexterity. But anyway, they're getting ready to study, and one of the boys walks into the library and sees this beautiful girl with long hair and eyes just like their mother. And he tries to talk to her, and she's like, I only talk to smart kids, and when you get your grades up, I will.
Popularity.
I will talk to you. And
is
then
it
is
school thing.
And then it is. Well, here's the thing. That's not even barely one layer to this. So,
oh my god,
it's revealed shortly thereafter. That this girl is actually the other brother.
Oh my god.
What?
To motivate, right?
So he did not intentionally catfish his brother, but they explain in this like very haphazard, like you're not supposed to really even buy it way or whatever. He was trying to. They can't be seen in both at the same time in school, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So when he saw his brother in the library, he quickly grabbed a disguise, which happened to turn him into a beautiful girl.
Ah, coincidence.
And he was trying to just blend in, but then after his brother saw him and started talking to him, he realized, I can use this to motivate my brother to get smart.
Oh my god.
So then it switches over to him intentionally catfishing his brother.
Oh my.
This sounds like a fucking plot from Arrested Development.
Yes. This is very funny and goes completely off the rails to the point where at the end he has to promise to go on a date with him if he gets like a 90 or something on his test, or he gets 100 on his test, and he eventually, I think he ends up coming with some scheme to make it like she like had to move away, or something, and he will never see her again, and that was pretty funny.
Hey man,
but
you can't spell twincest without win.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
so so I guess the implication here is that the brothers are so good at disguises they can fool each other.
Sure, I think it was mostly just supposed to be funny, but
I mean that too. But just like you think, like these two brothers who live so close to each other, like constantly switch places with each other, you could just feel the presence of the other
twin powers, man.
Yeah, I think there's that. There's also they try to differentiate between the two of them. So like the older one is kind of like the smart, and he's the one that pulls the scam. He is kind of like the smarter one, and the other kid's kind of the younger one's kind of dumb and hot headed. So like it would make more like the way they've characterized it would make more sense that he would be the one that would like fall for this, right? And that the other one would be cold and calculating enough to actually do it. So, but then the second episode is like they actually start advancing the plot a little bit, because they get into the rich kid's house, and there's all sorts of details that start coming out. They actually do find some real shady business happening within the house, which
of the adoptive parents.
No, so the rich kid's family that they were trying to get close to. They finally get into his house, and they've been looking for the house so they remember when they were kids, there was a house that they stayed in with their mother before she was murdered that had like weird paisley wallpaper or something. So they're looking for the house with this wallpaper, and they find the wallpaper in this house. But through various circumstances, the older brother is essentially kidnapped and locked in a room and made to dress up like a baby. I'm not even going to get into the details.
All right.
On this episode, the writer's poorly disguised fetish.
I mean, this is just a Yakuza sub story.
Yeah, it really is kind of has some of that energy, and so the other brother ends up trying to investigate, and the brother that's dressed as the baby is basically playing along with it to buy time while the other brother's investigating, and they find some really shady things going down, and
shady stuff like they're dressing people like babies in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, beyond that, they find some things in the attic and whatnot, and it's like secret rooms and things, and this is where the show's at a turning point for me, because I'm definitely enjoying it, and I think I will continue to enjoy it no matter what. But I'm kind of curious to see where they're going to go, because at the end of this episode, they have there's a maid that's kind of been friends with them, and she cannot overcome her maid urge to gossip and find the dirt on the family she's working for.
Of course.
So she's like helping investigate, and then like some things go down where she decides to basically take the fall, and it's implied that she might be dead. And I don't. One of two things is going to happen next episode. Either there's going to be some sort of like comical explanation for why she's not dead, or she will actually be dead. And
what if she's actually dead and it is comical?
Or I guess that would be a third option. Yeah. But
what would you prefer in the situation, Joe?
I don't know. I would kind of want them to, because I feel like they've kind of a little bit backed off anytime they went somewhere kind of dark with this.
Right.
And I that's fine, because I think it is supposed to be like black comedy, right? It's not supposed to be like super heavy or anything, but I would like them to kind of commit to that. And I think it's possible because like no matter what happens, their mother was murdered. Like they have clear memory.
Like past, that's not on screen.
I'm just saying, like there is the capacity for murder in this show. Is what I'm saying.
There is an option.
They regularly flash back to their mother laying in a pool of blood and all that, right? So, it's not impossible, but I'm leaning toward there's going to be some sort of comedy explanation for the maid not being dead, but I don't know. So I'm gonna. I feel like that's gonna kind of determine where the show is gonna swing for me next episode. Do they decide to actually commit to this, or because this episode got like kind of. There was some suspense, like they were in the secret attic room, and then they hear like footsteps coming in that they weren't supposed to be home at this time, and there's a lot of suspense for
classic suspense.
You hear people like climbing up the ladder to the attic, and and then they don't show you what happens. So like, I would love for them to like kind of commit to that and not just like laugh about it next episode. But I don't know.
Right.
We'll see. Either way, though, I'm really enjoying it. It is a very weird and funny and disturbing mix of things that feels very unique to me.
Gel, I gotta get you on Twin Peaks.
Yes, I know. We said that last time because I feel like even if this is not anime Twin Peaks, they're probably dealing in the same vibes here.
Total cues, right?
Yeah.
Twin Peaks huge in Japan, so
and we've already discussed that this is clearly a work that is influenced by that, right? So maybe that's
now that I'm becoming Twin Peaks pilled by.
All right, well, Eero, then it's your responsibility to come up with the good podcast title that can somehow fit GLORIO into it for the Twin Peaks Watchcast.
Oh my
Damn
God.
GLORIO coffee.
Yeah, well,
walk with me.
maybe I'll get to that after all the other things I'm trying to marathon before the end of the year here. But
in all seriousness, though, I'm glad that it seems like the show is like bearing out well, because I do remember when we first started talking about Migi and Dali, there was that feeling of like, for better or worse, right?
Apprehension,
right, because of the other primary work from this author, rest in peace, Sakamoto-kun, right?
Right,
and like.
Did Sakamoto-kun die?
But Jesus.
Yeah.
But
because that work was very like one-dimensional and kind of like
And so it's cool that Migi Dali seems to be finding ways to keep it fresh despite the absurdity of its premise.
Yeah, and this feels like a much more like mature, sort of like more developed, evolved work. So I mean, like, it's a shame that I would love to see what the author was coming up with next at this point.
Right, because you see a clear evolution here, right?
Yeah, she's clearly getting better, in my opinion.
Using her strengths in like the sort of absurd, bow-faced comedy, but now combining it with something that holds back the repetition.
Yeah, because you can see the same sort of deadpan humor here, but it's like a lot more going on. So it's I'm enjoying it, and it's just a shame that we're not going to get anything else after this, but all right, let's move on and talk about Bullbuster.
Bullbuster.
All right.
We finally got some action.
Have they fought a bull yet?
No.
Fought a wolf, big lizard, and a dog.
A dog.
Like an actual dog or an alien?
I mean,
kind of.
It is established that over these episodes, it's sort of established they discover that the creatures are most likely just animals that are being transformed.
Mutated animals.
Yeah, they're being infected by something and mutating.
And of course, they find this out because one of them looks just like one of the pink-haired girl's dog that she had on the island. Her precious,
it even still had the collar on, right?
So her precious Shiba Inu. The
universe. Did they do a thing where they need to put the animal out of its misery, and then it turns out that was my dog?
No, they realize this by checking the footage, and so they figure this is one. Maybe we can finally capture one live. Instead of killing it.
Because a sort of like common plot point here is that the obstructive and negligent medical corporation that they are ostensibly partnered with has kind of stonewalled their every attempt to get an inquiry into what is up with these monsters. Kind of says, well, if you deliver us a live specimen, we might be able to get more information for you, right? So
clearly expecting them to not be able to deliver. Right.
And as you naturally might expect, they successfully capture it and deliver it to the medical corporation, and they continue to stonewall the protagonists.
Yeah, and they even give them the evidence.
Corporations do.
Right, they even give them the evidence of this was a dog, right? It's we found that this was a dog.
It's like, this was a mammal. We already knew that.
We found that this was a mammal. To determine if it was a dog or not would require additional testing.
So is the implication that the bureaucrats are trying to cover something up? Like,
I mean, I think it almost might just go as far as they're just negligent in the way
I
that
think
corporations.
I think that's possible. Like, it would not surprise me if the big reveal was that they're the ones that caused this or whatever. But
I mean, I think that's still possible.
I also don't think. I also think it could just be that this is the commentary on corporations being evil and useless,
right? Because like the hero, because okay, so a big thing that comes up in the prior episode is that in a very Godzilla-esque like style of like narrative escalation, some of these kaiju are learning how to swim. Like they are evolving to swim, and right now they're currently confined to the island. But like, if they're learning to swim, that bodes really badly.
Right.
For the future, and they try to they try to communicate this to their like the liaison they have in the medical corporation, and he basically just shrugs his shoulders and says, "That's not my problem."
And the medical corporation is on the mainland, I'm assuming.
Yes.
I hated that scene so much. They went too hard with that guy. But anyway,
a little too much. But like,
yeah, he was like cartoon villain in that scene. But
I mean, like as Eero said, the characters in this latest episode are gesticulating like they're freaking Ace Attorney characters.
Yes, exactly. Like, which does not feel like it fits the tone of the show. But yes, yeah.
I think at this point with Bullbuster, I think I am maybe starting to hit that point you hit like last time, Gel, of like, okay, this is. I very much do appreciate the gimmick of what was it called, Eero, the economically sensible mecha series or whatever.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yes,
but like it's maybe leaning like okay. Here's the thing about Daiguard. Daiguard did a lot of this stuff, but at the end of almost every episode, they beat the fucking shit out of some monster. You know,
right.
Like.
Whereas here they actually like consider the fact that them fighting would have serious repercussions that they would have to deal with for like episodes.
Yeah,
already.
and we're getting like one monster fight every like 2.5 episodes or something, right?
But like the most exciting thing Bullbuster does in the latest episode is shoot a tree.
Yeah, I got
enemy tree.
I gotta say, like, I don't know. I might be done. Like, I feel like I'm just getting nothing out of this show. Like, it's fine. Because when you're not, I don't feel like they're injecting enough of the unique mecha part of it into it, and most of the time, like 90% of it is like average office comedy. Like there's some very good jokes. I'll give them that. Like I loved the 15-minute joke. If you watched the episode, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But when the accountant guy is like sets his watch ahead,
you're still on administrative leave.
So like there's a couple of pretty good jokes, but I feel like 90% of the time this is just like kind of average middle of the road office comedy.
I think that is also the issue, right? Is like
you mean this in like that it's not the mecha element doesn't really factor into it, as in this could have been a show about like the people who make sure the garbage gets picked up on time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that like, it doesn't. It's not like it doesn't factor at all. I just don't think it factors enough. Like,
I agree. Like, I think. Like, I hate to keep comparing it to like a Daiguard or a Pat Labor, but like,
those are the standards of this genre.
Like, I mean, those are the frames of reference we have, right?
Right, like those two are sort of the golden example of the like mecha workplace comedy, and the things that those two shows nail really well is like, well, they were legitimately great workplace comedies, but also like much of the humor came from the mecha part as well. Right, like much of it came from the goofiness, like the absurdity of these men, like straight faced, saying and doing these like utterly banal corporate things, and then in the background, like a fucking robot is like fighting a forklift, and
or like spoilers for Pat Labor the movie, but it's like the core reason they can fight back is because like. Their computer guy was lazy and didn't update the firmware when he was supposed to. Right?
Yes.
They're like, oh yeah, it's running out last gen.
Yeah, that's so the hacking virus or whatever doesn't work.
Yeah. So
I mean, like that's an interesting
in this show,
thing, right?
I mean, this show instead of that, we get we don't have anybody that has a boat license to take the robot over there, and it's like that's not like they take that one thing and drag it out for like 4 episodes.
So here's the thing: the boating license joke was hilarious the first time around.
Yes.
Like I thought, like I truly fucking laughed my ass off the first time they're like, "Oh shit, we can't legally transport this robot to the island because nobody has a boating license." That's funny the first time.
Continues to be a problem for 4 episodes.
A running issue. Yeah,
it gets a little old the 5th time around. They're busting that joke out. You know.
I mean, I just think the thing is, you need to give them the carrot, right? You need to tell people. You need to give people the payoff of finally getting to see the robot in action in order to make all of this like administration and bureaucracy worth it, right?
Right.
Well,
and I think some of that just needs to tie together a little bit better. I think, because even the mecha segments, like, the bureaucratic stuff doesn't really come up that much once the mech actually gets going, right? Like, they play up the, like, realism of it, you know? Like, the greatest threat to Bullbuster turns out to be mud, but, like...
But it's never, like, the fact that they would tell the pilot something like, oh, be economical with the fuel, that stuff's really expensive, or, like, stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. And I don't know, I guess it's like, I'd like to. I still want to believe in Bullbuster, but like, I think it's like, it's just the caliber of joke is not quite as hard hitting as I think we all hoped in that first episode.
Yeah. I mean, it might just also just be in a slump, as many shows are around.
That is always possible,
right?
as well.
I kind of feel like this is what the show is at this point. It is what it is, but they did almost kill a YouTuber.
that did happen. Yes.
Yeah, I think. I think. Well, G, if you had your reason to keep Overtake, the only reason I would keep watching Bullbuster is to ship Arumi with the new researcher girl.
Oh yes, the scientist lady. Sure,
I'll ship that. Other than that, I feel like this is not doing much for me.
Evolved into the final form of the media consumer.
Look, the older I get, I'm just giving into whatever.
Just watching things for the ship, yeah.
I'm not going to fight it anymore. I have nothing to prove. I don't know. I don't know. I have so many other things to watch at this point. I don't know if I'm going to keep watching. We'll see. All right.
Well, speaking of so many things to watch,
oh my god,
let's talk about Under Ninja.
I'm behind
so you only saw one. You didn't see the latest episode.
Yeah.
Because the latest episode, I think, was arguably the best episode they've done.
Oh, great. Well,
glad to hear it.
Okay, well, someone who has read the manga, tell me what happens in the latest episode.
Well, you know what? Let's before we get to that, let's get to the one that you guys did watch.
Let us conclude the dick slicing foreigner arc.
Yes, we have the conclusion to we have to say that at least once per podcast.
Yes.
We conclude the dick slicing foreigner arc. He joins the ninjas. The joke going around is that there are a lot of people regretting not taking up Mr. Breast Milk on his offer. As is revealed that he is a hot ninja lady.
Yes.
In a fat suit,
yeah. I don't really know if much else happens in that episode, but that's
because they take down the Dick Slicing Foreigner because three ninjas sort of happen to converge on that apartment building at the same time, right?
Yes,
and it's and he is fighting off all of these dudes with his weird little pistol until he gets into the getaway vehicle and Kuro's just there. Right.
Sucker punches him. Yeah. Just waiting in the fucking passenger seat.
It's sort of continuing the open question / implication that Kuro is actually a pretty fucking good ninja. He's just, despite being a weird dirtbag,
he's just at the bottom of the
but he's actually
it's actually
good,
very
right?
good.
Yeah,
he's good at what a ninja's actually supposed to do, right?
And
the joke is you have Miracle Hebe, you have the glasses lady, and they're doing all their ninja shit, drop kicks and throwing ninja gadgets. But at the end of the day, what is a ninja actually supposed to do? Which is hide in places
and then kill somebody, right?
Yeah, right. And it's so, which ironically means he does not stand out. AKA things ninjas are supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that this is kind of highlighting just what continues to be my main problem with the show is the horrible directing and structure of it all.
Yeah.
Where it's like now we are understanding why Kuro was hired to do was chosen to do this other job, and everybody thinks he's better than the other ninjas or whatever, right? So, but we went in such a like roundabout and way of getting there, right? And it's just like that's just I really wanted them to stop doing that by like the second or third episode, and it's no, we're just committed to we're telling like 4 different stories at once at different times, and it's not adding anything to any of the story. But moving on to the latest episode, I guess are we skipping ahead behind, I don't know, to this is basically when Kuro is infiltrating the high school,
right?
And he is like scamming the teachers in a lot of very fun, amusing ways.
Oh, is this like the entrance exam?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, that's pretty good.
Yeah. You know what? If Ira hasn't watched it yet, I'm not going to spoil everything.
Yeah,
he's going through a lot of like really. This is where he started to cross into a lovable dirtbag for me because of how he was scamming his way through all of this. He meets. They introduce yet another character. He meets this like formerly rich, popular girl or whatever who's not popular anymore. Or something, I don't know. Whatever, and she's sort of the viewpoint character to Kuro, just being a total dirtbag and scamming his way through. Making everybody believe he's an actual high schooler and him, doing just enough to pass all the tests and everything, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they come up with some very convoluted, ways of like sending him test answers and stuff like that.
Is this like in Naruto where they're doing the Chunin exam and everyone like figure out different ways to cheat without being caught? Or like still being caught but cheating well enough that
I guess the premise of the joke is similar to what you described. Of essentially, Kuro has to take a series of tests, and
just with the under ninja lowest common denominator humor.
But, yeah. Just some real fucking dirtbag ways to cheat at a test, and it's like.
Like he's not above just breaking down into tears in front of the teacher to get his way.
Right. Like,
that kind of like he has no dignity whatsoever.
Yes, that is the fun of Kuro's. Kuro's a character with no shame, no dignity,
or dignity or anything. He will do whatever it
self-respect
takes to get the job done, and it's quite hilarious. So
yeah,
like that was the most fun I've had with Under Ninja so far. And that was like 2/3 of the latest episode. There's, as always, 4 other things happening, and none of it really makes sense. But, I feel like that's where that's kind of the personality I was expecting to see from the show, and I wish it was more than just 2/3 of 1 out of 5 episodes. But
yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. Maybe it just works better in manga form, but it does feel like the anime is kind of struggling to like.
Well, they didn't do all this. They didn't do all the same kind of skipping around in the manga, did they?
No. The manga is just it's just all in chronological order. It's just a normal ass story.
Yeah, so like I don't know why they couldn't have just done that. Like,
it
would have been fine.
Yeah, again, I thought it was like an okay idea for the first episode, but like ever since
they kept going.
I don't know why they're still going with this.
Because and it's not even just following the plot. Because actually, I mean, following the plot is not really that hard, but we never have enough time to get to know the characters before they introduce 3 more characters and another plot thread. And this episode was my favorite because that's probably the longest stretch of time we've spent with Kuro getting to know his deal and having a chance to attach ourselves to his story and everything. And I feel like if they had just told us chronologically, that maybe that would work better. But instead, every episode we're getting, 4 new characters introduced that we don't care about because they're on screen for 10 seconds before the clock reverses and we're back to 3 months ago, to a month ago or whatever. And it's just, I don't know if they thought that was like going to be like a cool artsy thing to do or whatever, but like, it's just not, it does not help the show at all.
No, I agree. I think at this point, it is kind of a mystifying directing choice.
Yeah. But I still want it. I want it to work. I'm still gonna keep watching, but and I think coming off this last episode, and we are starting to see. G, did you predict by episode 6 would finally get to like all the actual high school showdown or whatever?
I think that's what I was hoping for. Yes.
So that might actually happen since we're coming up on episode 6 next. But so maybe moving forward they're going to have their act together. I don't know, but we'll see.
Alrighty.
All right. So that's going to do it for our anime talk. But you know, since we have Aqua with us.
Yeah,
we always like to do a little Tokusatsu update.
No, I'm here every time.
What?
I'm here every time. We could, if you ever wanted to talk about Tokusatsu, Gel.
Look, that's fair.
We can't do it every time, okay? So you know, we'll space it out when we have more than one person that is watching.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
You know, so. What's the latest with the men in rubber suits these days?
What's the latest?
What's the latest on the men in rubber suits? Actually, when in King Orchard they're wearing leather suits.
Oh my god! I will end this podcast right now.
No, so yeah, we've been watching the like traditional Tokusatsu duo of Super Sentai and Kamen Rider. With Super Sentai, we're currently nearing the end of the current show, which is a Royal Sentai Kyojure. Yeah, like 2/3. We're in like the 30th, the episode 30-ish.
Yeah.
Or like in the 30s of what is normally like a 48 episode show.
Yeah, we're at about episode 35, 36. These shows tend to go about 45, 46 episodes.
Right. Yeah. So closing in on the ending, and what is a bit noticeable here is that they, for the first time, are doing a kind of like season structure, in that they explicitly announced the second half of the show as like season 2, which got its own like key art, which is not normally something they do for Tokusatsu. Normally it's just, you know, it runs continuously. And the thing is, there's been a time skip. So the first half of the show, short recap, it's all the 5 rangers in our team are all monarchs of a nation on a planet somewhere far away in space. And sort of the unique dynamic of the first half of the show was that the Sentai is not really a Sentai. Like, they're not really a team. They're like a coalition. Yeah. They're an uneasy coalition of monarchs, mostly trying to advance their own agendas, but also understanding that their entire planet is being attacked by monsters, right?
I think I remember this. It's been a while, but yes.
Mm-hmm. But this gave us some like interesting concepts that maybe were not always executed all that greatly. But now we've moved into the second half. There's been a 2-year time skip. And it's becoming more like a conventional Sentai. Like, at this point, the monarchs have like seized power. Like they are trusted by their subordinates. You know, they are comfortably in their seats. And then they're getting attacked by an alien invasion force led by a guy called, what's his name?
Dugdead Dujardin.
Dugdead Dujardin, indeed, who is like this. Basically a god. Like, it's very common for Super Sentai to fight like dudes who are like wanted in 73 galaxies for like mass murder and genocide. But this guy is literally says that he has like subjugated every dimension except for this one.
He's taking his time because it's boring.
Right. But he's like a villain on a much like bigger scale than what Sentai usually does. Not that it makes much difference. Like, he's still going to send one monster down every episode, and the monster is going to do some shenanigans. But it's this return to like the classic structure that allows King Orchard to do some of the like Sentai classics, like the body swap episode or the evil clone episode and stuff like that.
Right.
But it mostly does it in a decent enough way. The show is kind of weird in that it sometimes wants to be taken seriously as a like an epic fantasy drama on, like, of course, on the level of kids, but it wants to be, pretty serious, weighty, while other times it's trying to be
It's
like a
Super
silly,
Sentai,
goofy
yeah.
comedy. Yeah, it's Super Sentai. Now, what is interesting? Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna guess that it does not go well when they try to be serious.
It occasionally has interesting ideas, but it never really manages to manifest those, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like, this is you can very clearly see this in the character of the traditional Sixth Ranger. In Power Rangers you had the Green Ranger, and here we have Jeremy Brasieri, how do you describe that's kind of thing. You can't really describe this character because his role switches every 5 episodes. Like, he starts off as like a roguish king in the iron mask, and everyone is like, oh, what is he the king of? And then he turns out he's not the king of anything. And then he's a spy, and then he wants revenge, and then he's secretly manipulating everything behind the scenes, and then he becomes the king of the bad guys, and then he becomes they just don't know what to do with this guy.
Throwing so many things at the wall, and
yeah.
And so because Sentai is normally so formulaic all the time, there's just inherently some sort of novelty value in going like, oh, so this is kind of an interesting thing for Sentai to do, but then also it means it's completely unprepared to do any of these things, and so usually just fumbles flat on its face and then moves on. And then we go, dang, if you had put some actual time into this concept, maybe it would have been interesting.
I mean, a running gag that we have when watching the show is that every single episode feels like a series finale.
Right.
Because they wrap up this big plot arc and then immediately introduce something else. Yeah. And you sort of get the situation that nothing really changes. So the current arc that they're on is pretty interesting because they've just done a crossover with another Sentai show from 10 years ago.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
GLORIO, which was a show we did pretty extensively cover on this blog. And so they, traditional, cable TV crossover thing. Oh, we get sucked into a different dimension, and now we're in the world of GLORIO, right? But the weird thing is, normally these crossovers are weird, goofy, non-canon filler. But here, they actually reveal that the society that the King Ogers are monarchs of was actually founded by spacefaring settlers from the GLORIO world. And that now the GLORIO world has also been subjugated by that one villain. And then when they get back from the world of the other Sentai, it turns out 9 months have passed. And in the meantime, the bad guy has won. He has conquered the world because they were gone for 9 months.
Oh, there were actual consequences. That's
right. There were actual consequences.
Yeah.
But so now we're in an arc where like each of the Rangers like tries to win back their own nation, or like tries to take back their own nation. And we've just had the episode where the Blue Ranger like does that, and the Blue Ranger is like, he is the king of Bancho Hackerland. Yeah. So all they're like cyberpunk world. They're all hackers and into technology, but they also act like, you know, traditional like anime delinquents.
They say "ora" and
yeah, and they have pompadours and things like that. And whatever they want to throw down, they have hacker fights where they just take out their laptops and slam random keys.
Right.
But the episode ends with that entire country just wiped off the map.
Right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Because like the Blue Ranger King decides like he would rather have all of his subjects survive, right? And keep his country alive.
Save his little bros, or whatever you call them.
So it's like, you end on this like they're staying over a hill, and this country is like a smoking crater, and it's because like I made my choice to save you instead. And then it's like, next episode, oh no, Yellow Princess might be engaged.
Yeah.
Right. Oh no. And it's like, right. And it's so weird for Sentai, right? It's like, because there's a certain like level of atonality that we just all expect from anime at this point, or Japanese media even, and Tokusatsu in particular is capable of big swings on that front. But this is just like this feel like it's doing it with no intentionality whatsoever. Right.
Yeah, this is just the next part of the story that we have.
Yes.
No transition.
It's just a bunch of ideas. Yeah. Which you also see in like how characters can like act wildly different from scene to scene. Like,
there's just no consistency.
I'm curious.
Right.
It's like, is this series being what it is? Do you think they may continue to try to do Sentais in like non-Earth settings going forward?
They have been trying to shake up the formula over the past couple of years.
Has not been doing well.
Yeah. Because I mean, over the past couple of years,
saying that was the big thing about this series when it first debuted.
Right. Over the past couple of years, we have had like 2 Sentais who fight each other. We have had a Sentai that only has 1 ranger and like 4 like robot buddies. We've had like all sorts of different variations on the theme. And I think King Oger is doing relatively well.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look up toy sales
but
and such.
It doesn't necessarily come from the story. Like the big change about this show is that they're filming on like an all green key CGI set, like they filmed The Mandalorian and stuff.
Right. So the first Japanese production to do this, like the whole way through or whatever.
Yeah. Allegedly, they have a 1 million yen budget per episode.
What? So
1 billion yen it was.
Really?
Okay. Because I would say, dude, 1 million yen. That's like what, like $10,000 or something. Like,
okay, yeah, 1 billion yen. Then the show looks like
with the week yen. That's even less.
This show looks like it's got a 1 million yen per episode budget.
It looks like absolute garbage.
Don't know what they're doing with the other 999.
Christ alive. But I mean, it's. We didn't immediately kick it to the curb like some other Sentai shows.
Right.
Because it is at least like so.
At least there are actual people in actual rubber suits as opposed to the last Sentai show.
So it's at least interesting.
Yeah, and it has an occasional like fun moment.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting that Sentai is trying to be a bit more ambitious or serious compared to Kamen Rider this year, because Kamen Rider is going full goofy and silly.
Kamen Rider
this
is
year
more serious.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kamen Rider has like
places.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So Kamen Rider is Kamen Rider Got Shard, which I think we have talked about once, but only after the first episode came out.
Oh my god!
And the first episode of a Kamen Rider show is always kind of the same, so you don't really get an idea of what the show will be like.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're like 10 episodes in, I want to say.
Yeah, like 8 or 9.
Yeah, something like that. So around 10 episodes in. And it's turned out that Good Shard is like it's a retro throwback kind of show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see this in many things, because over the past couple of years, we've always complained that Kamen Rider has had the core issue of it's expensive to make, or too expensive to make. So they can't do Monster of the Week anymore, because for Monster of the Week, you need to make a cool new monster every week. So they came up with this idea of, well, people don't buy toys associated with monsters, but they do buy toys associated with Kamen Riders. So what did they do? They moved a lot of the budget for monster suits to making more Kamen Riders. And as a result, most of the recent shows have been about Kamen Riders, many Kamen Riders who fight each other for some reason or another, instead of fighting monsters, right? Now, the last show, Kamen Rider Geats, worked within this premise because it was a kind of like Battle Royale thing, right? This show is going entirely back to basics. There is one rider. We're 10 episodes in, and there's still only one Kamen Rider. Yes, but he is legally distinct from a Kamen Rider.
Uh-huh.
He is a common warrior.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Grid Knight.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the idea is they're trying to go back to basics, back to like Monster of the Week, back to like Showa era silliness. And I think they're doing a pretty good job at it.
You mentioned Grid Knight, and Kamar Gotchard is the head writer is Kiichi Hasegawa, who also wrote SSS as Gridman and Dynazenon, and Rage of Bahamut Genesis.
Right. But this show is more similar to Rage of Bahamut Genesis, as in it knows what it is, you know?
Right.
And what it is a show about a guy in a rubber suit who punches monsters.
Uh-huh.
So the entire idea is it's like there are these Pokemon-like creatures called the Kemis, and at the beginning of the show, they all get lost. They get like spread out all over Japan or Tokyo, and the main character has to become Kamen Rider to like find them all and catch them all and bring them back to the Alchemy Institution, because Kemis are dangerous. You know, if they are around people with malicious intentions, then they will try to copy that evil behavior and they will become monsters. So a lot of the conflict in the early episodes is about like Kamen Rider, our hero, who is like, oh, Kemis are friends, you know, they don't mean no harm, they only become bad when people make them do bad things, versus his rival Valvarat, or we call him Spanner Kurogane because that's his name. His name is Spanner. He fights with a big spanner. And he's like the rival who's like, no, Kemis are tools. They're dangerous. They need to be, you know, imprisoned. So that's what the conflict is about. But the fun thing is that this gives us like a lot of like episodic adventures about civilians bonding with Kemis, right? Yeah. And there is one very good I think it's like episode 5 or 6.
Yeah.
That is about like a rundown wrestling dojo with like an old man, but he doesn't get any new students. But he has, you know, he has a friend, which is the Kemi Wrestler G, which has possessed this like shitty lucha libre action figure. But he's also in trouble with the Yakuza, so the Yakuza show up to like ask for protection money, and they like threaten to beat up his gym. And then like Wrestler G comes out and beats up all of the Yakuza, but it's literally like they dangle this action figure from a piece of fish wire, and they like swing it around, and then the stuntmen dressed as Yakuza have to pretend to be beaten up.
It rules.
It rules. And then at the end of the episode, like they show that, oh, you know, Kemis can become monsters, but like if they have been like influenced in a good way, then they can also become heroic monsters. So Wrestler G transforms into just like a wrestler, just like a dude with a lucha libre mask, and then together with Kamen Rider, he like beats up the monster in the wrestling ring. But then it is time to say goodbye, because Wrestler G has to go with Kamen Rider to become a power up, so that Kamen Rider can continue his fight against evil.
Memories of the
So the old man has to tearfully say goodbye to Wrestler G.
His little action figure.
Yeah. And the Kemis are Pokemon, so they can only say Pokemon things, right?
Right.
So it's like the old man's like, Wrestler G, no, you must move on and help Kamen Rider.
You've inspired me to continue my gym without you.
And then Wrestler G just goes, Wrestler G.
You know, and then we had like that whole talk earlier this podcast about how like Japanese audiences are just better primed to empathize with non-human characters.
Right.
Really feeling that right now.
I mean, there is an arc about this child who, who's studying too much, but he became friends with Sabo Needle, the plastic cactus. And he plays around with him.
And it's just a cactus with like eyes, and they wiggling it around to make it move.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, there's an episode about a skateboard that is like,
Right.
oh, it's a cool skateboard, and it's hanging out with kids at the skate park doing tricks, except the special effects look like garbage because they don't have money to do it properly. But then the skateboard falls in with the wrong crowd, and he goes to hang out with delinquents, and he becomes an evil skateboard. And then Kamen Rider just shows up and says with like the flattest of faces, "How dare you threaten the hopes and dreams of this skateboard?"
All
right.
Yes. So
That's
I
pretty
mean,
good.
it's good. I think that that writer is good at what he does. I think. And knows how to like tread this line of this show is incredibly stupid and silly,
Right.
while also like there are other plot threads bubbling underneath. Like
Right.
they have to
There
erase people's memories, like of the civilians, anytime they find a Kemi, like no matter how good their relationship was with the Kemi. And Kamen Rider has to be like, do we really have to erase this 10-year-old child's memory of his best friend, the plastic cactus? Say, it's alchemy law, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, if this writer could make me like feel the pathos of a mummy,
a 500,000-year-old mummy. Yeah.
I guess anything's possible.
Indeed.
I mean, and it also has just like fun side characters, like Kamen Rider is like a traditional, like classic, like good boy, but they play it up really well. Like the rival dude is like so comically square and just like an asshole, just sort
Perfect
of like
in every way, right?
like having him around as well. There's like a goofy sidekick duo, one of which is like a girl from Osaka, and her whole thing is that she like runs grifts all the
She's
time.
got to hustle to make that money.
Yeah. And the current episode we're on is like the traditional episode where Toei show off their cool Edo period set. So they go to Kyoto on a school trip, and they like go to a theme park that is like Edo period themed. So it's an excuse to have everyone running around dressed like samurai and stuff. So pretty cool.
Yeah. It's been fun so far.
Yeah.
In a way that the past few have not been. And in the way that Sentai has not been right now either.
Yeah. Because the thing is, like, it's still a toy commercial. Because, like, every episode there will be new Kemis, and guess what? If you put the card that the Kemi is on into the belt, it becomes a cool power-up, and we don't have money for enough power-ups, so some of them are all CGI and look like garbage.
But also sometimes it's just a JPEG moving around, and that's funny.
It's just like a prop, like there's like a Kemi that's just called Smartphone, and it's a smartphone with eyes and arms and legs, but it's this shitty plastic prop that they always have to use whenever they're calling each other. I mean that kind of stuff. If you like the goofiest but most charming shitty special effects, this is the Kamen Rider show for you.
It's really getting back to basics, I guess.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And apparently it's intentionally so, right?
Right. It's an intentional Showa throwback, also in that all of the monsters are surprisingly dark.
Right.
They fight
even though they're targeting children. That's
yeah.
Kamen Rider just saved the children because his
I'm sorry,
into a monster and trying to beat him.
I'm sorry, son, that I turned into a monster to try and break up your friendship between you and your best friend, the plastic cactus, because I need you to study more. Yeah.
I think we might need to shut this off before we get another plastic cactus reference. It is very amusing. Nonetheless, that sounds like a lot of fun. So,
yep.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it then for this episode. We'll get to our housekeeping. You can check us out at theglorioblog.com. You can follow us on Twitter at the Glorio blog, on co-host at Glorio, and you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube, where you can comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, tell us we're wrong, whatever you want to do. It all counts as engagement. And tell your friends, tell your enemies, we'll catch you next time.
Wrestler G.